Imagine being the only human on a space station that sees your species as inferior. Now picture finding an injured creature that everyone wants to kill. What would you do? This is exactly the dilemma 19-year-old engineer Ethan Wolfe faces when a dragon crashes into his cargo bay, forcing him to choose between following regulations or saving a life. The air in Cargo Bay 4 carries the sharp tang of ozone and the heavy scent of hydraulic fluid, a perfume that has permanently seeped into the fibers of Ethan Wolfe's coveralls. It's the smell of work, of function, of a corner of the station where things are fixed, not debated. At 19, Ethan maintains the intricate humming systems of Andromeda 7, a ghost in the machine, utterly invisible to the diplomats and officers whose lives hum along several decks above his head. The vibration of the deck plates is a low, constant thrum beneath his boots, a physical reminder of the life thriving overhead, a life that actively, systematically, pretends he doesn't exist. His people are considered primitive by most galactic standards, a judgment he feels like a physical weight. Their technological innovations, when noticed at all, are dismissed as flukes, lucky accidents rather than applied skill. This prejudice is the cage he lives in, its bars made of condescension and bureaucratic neglect. He has learned to prefer the shadows of the maintenance bays, the certainty of a circuit's logic over the ambiguous, shifting currents of alien politics. Here, a faulty connection has a clear solution. A broken component can be replaced. The rules are knowable. This self-imposed isolation serves as a shield, protecting him from constant dismissal. But it is a cage all the same, its lock fashioned from galactic bias. His toolkit is an extension of his will, each instrument worn smooth not by time, but by relentless use and necessity. The sonic driver fits his palm like it was grown there. The laser calibrator responds to the subtlest pressure of his thumb. This bay is his entire kingdom, a realm of malfunctioning servo motors, silent diagnostic panels, and the deep, resonant hum of power conduits channeling energies. He understands better than most, understand their own voices. He is profoundly, utterly competent in this space, capable of diagnosing a dozen simultaneous system failures with a glance at a flickering screen. And he is completely, devastatingly alone. The station buzzes with thousands of lives, ambassadors, traders, security personnel, all engaged in the complex dance of interstellar relations. Their conversations echo through comm channels he monitors but never joins. He is the solitary mechanic ensuring the stage lights stay on for a play he is never allowed to watch. This is the world as Ethan knows it, a world of concrete problems and silent solutions, of humming machinery and absolute solitude. It is a world of precise, predictable rhythms, moments before a dragon tears through the hull and shatters every one of them. A sound tears through the steady hum of the maintenance bay, a violent shearing noise that is distinctly not metal. It is the organic rip of a membrane, wet and sudden, followed by the heavy impact of something massive and wrong crashing into the steel deck plates of Cargo Bay 17. Emergency lights snap on, casting a strobing red glare across the scene. The thing is a tangle of limb and wing, large enough to block a cargo corridor, alien enough to freeze the blood. It is a creature, wounded and heaving, a myth made terrifying flesh in a place built for stark, unfeeling logic. Security scans flag the atmospheric breach before the dust has even settled, a priority alert flashing across every monitor in the command hub. It is a blip on a screen, a regulatory anomaly demanding a standardized by-the-book response. But Ethan's first instinct isn't fear or panic. It is a technician's cold, swift assessment of cause and effect. His eyes automatically track the trajectory of the impact, calculating the force required to punch through the secondary hull plating. He sees a trail of fluid, dark and iridescent, splattered across the grates. The creature's form is a jarring dissonance against the welded steel and polished conduits of his domain. It belongs in a storybook, not a starship. Its scales are a living mosaic, reflecting the emergency lights and shifting, impossible hues of deep amethyst and shattered obsidian. They seem to drink the light and then give it back, changed. But the stunning beauty is broken. One wing is bent backward at a cruel, unnatural angle, a masterpiece of biological engineering, now a ruin of torn tissue and exposed, delicate bone. The delicate membrane, which should have been taut and shimmering, hangs in ragged strips. It makes a sound then, a low thrum that bypasses the ears entirely to vibrate deep in the chest cavity. It is a frequency of pure, undiluted pain, a sensation that feels like a failing generator's last resonant groan. The creature shifts, a pained, shuddering motion that sends another wave of that dark fluid seeping across the deck. It is utterly vulnerable, cornered in a world of hard angles and colder intentions. Its great head, crowned with subtle horns that curve like polished stone, lifts slightly, and intelligent slitted eyes, the color of molten gold, focus on Ethan. The dragon's arrival is not an incident. It is an anomaly, a living question the station's rigid protocols were never designed to answer, a problem of flesh and pain in a universe of steel and regulation. The heavy thud of boots echoes on the metal grates before the security team even rounds the corner, a percussive warning of their approach. Commander Voss leads them, his posture rigid, his forearms a study in controlled readiness. His primary hands rest on his hips while his secondary arms keep their plasma rifles held at a low but immediate angle. They do not need to be aimed. Their presence is the threat. The team moves with a unison that speaks of drills and discipline, their armored forms cutting sharp silhouettes against the bay's industrial lighting. They are not here to investigate. They are here to conclude. They see a biological hazard, a regulatory nuisance that has breached their clean, ordered systems. Their gaze sweeps over the creature's magnificent, pained form and registers only a contamination risk, an irregularity in the station's smooth operation. Voss's voice is flat, devoid of inflection as he states the obvious solution. One shot will vaporize it. Clean, efficient, and we can all get back to real work. The statement hangs in the ozone-charged air, a verdict delivered without a trial. There is no curiosity in his eyes, only the impatience of a man confronting an inconvenient mess. Lieutenant Kresch's translucent skin flashes a deep, unsettled purple of disgust as he agrees. Containment protocols are clear. The potential for biocontamination is unacceptable. He cites chapter and verse from the station's security manual, his words a sterile shield against any flicker of empathy. The debate that follows is cold, entirely clinical, a discussion of procedures and liabilities. They speak of the creature as an it, a problem to be solved with the application of plasma fire and the subsequent filing of incident reports. Its suffering is not a factor in the equation. Its existence is the equation's error. Only Sergeant Thex remains silent, her crystalline form refracting the red emergency lights into tiny fractured rainbows across her armor. Her hand rests on the grip of her sidearm, but she does not draw it. Her posture is not one of aggression, but of watchful tension. A question lingers in her eyes, a silent challenge to the cold calculus of her commanders. She observes the dragon's labored breathing, the intelligent fear in its golden eyes, and her instinct to follow orders wars with a deeper, unspoken doubt. The dragon shifts again, a pained, involuntary shudder that scrapes its injured wing against the deck. The sound is a wet, gritty rasp. In immediate unison, 3 plasma rifles snap up, barrels centering on the creature's skull. The humming charge of the weapons adds a new lethal frequency to the bay's atmosphere. There is no hesitation, only a conditioned response to movement. The officers do not see a being in agony. They see a variable becoming active. In that instant, with weapons raised and fingers on triggers, they crystallize the station's core ethos for Ethan to witness firsthand. Expedience over ethics, rules over life. The solution is simple, final, and utterly devoid of mercy. Before his mind could fully process the decision, Ethan's body had already moved. He stepped forward, a simple shift of weight from his heels to the balls of his feet, and placed his own frame squarely between the 3 raised plasma rifles and the injured dragon. The positioning was not strategic. It was instinct. His grease-stained coveralls and worn toolkit were a stark, almost absurd contrast to the polished armor and lethal hardware of the security team. He had just drawn a line in the grimy deck plating with his own mortality, and the tension in the bay snapped taut. This was more than mere insubordination. For a human, a species already considered a liability on the station's official personnel assessments, it was a career-terminating act. Every regulation, every protocol he had ever been forced to memorize, screamed that this was wrong. His future, the meager one he had carved out in the station's underbelly, vaporized in that single silent moment of defiance. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat that he was certain everyone could hear. But his voice, when it came, was unnervingly steady. "It needs help," he stated, the words clear and measured in the humming silence. "Not execution." A warmth blooms in the center of Ethan's chest, a feeling like sunlight on his sternum that has no external source. He registers it not as heat, but as a profound spreading resonance, a vibration that seems to originate within his own bones. He has just finished securing the last suture on the smart fabric patch, his hands resting against the dragon's warm, scale-covered flank. The creature turns its massive head, its golden eyes holding his gaze, and the warmth intensifies, carrying a meaning his mind struggles to parse. His universal translator, a small device clipped to his collar designed for 1,000,000 spoken languages, remains stubbornly silent. There are no words to translate. The dragon is communicating, but the language it uses operates on a frequency his technology cannot process, and his ears cannot hear. It uses harmonics, a sophisticated lexicon of vibration and pure frequency. The meaning bypasses the auditory canal entirely, transmitting directly into the dense matter of his skeleton, where it is decoded not by the brain, but by the entire nervous system. It is a form of telepathy built on physics, not magic, a resonance that makes his ribs hum with understanding. The first concept that translates is unmistakable: gratitude. It arrives not as a word, but as a resonant hum that evokes the feeling of sunlight after a long night, of a deep, soul-level relief. It is a thank you conveyed as a physical sensation. Then comes a deeper, more complex transmission. A wave of longing washes through him, a sensation so potent it steals his breath. It is the memory of flight translated into sound, a harmonic impression of wind rushing over vast wings, of diving through cloud banks over alien mountain ranges, of the utter freedom of the open sky. The feeling is bittersweet, tinged with the pain of its current grounded state. In that moment, the last vestiges of seeing the dragon as an animal, as a creature, evaporate. Ethan realizes with absolute clarity that he is not just healing a patient. He is conversing with a person with a history, a home, and a profound desire to return to it. The being shares its name. It is not a series of syllables, but a foundational frequency, a concept more than a word. He understands it as resonance, an identity that is intrinsically tied to its mode of being and communication. A new stream of harmonics flows into him, carrying a statement of profound philosophical weight. Perception shapes reception. It conveys the concept unfolding in his mind like a blueprint. Compassion opens channels that prejudice keeps closed. The meaning is clear. His willingness to see past its frightening exterior, to act with empathy instead of fear, was the key that unlocked this dialogue. His open mind became the receiver for a signal the entire station was tuned to ignore. This is not a higher form of animal intelligence. It is a parallel intelligence, a completely different way of being and knowing the universe. Where most species build understanding through accumulated data and spoken logic, resonance's people seem to understand through vibrational empathy, through feeling the truth of a thing in its fundamental frequency. The rescue is reframed. It is no longer a simple act of fixing a broken thing. It has become the first true, intentional interspecies dialogue between a human and a dragon, a conversation built not on words but on shared resonance, opening a channel that was, until this moment, closed to the entire galaxy. The purpose Resonance shares with Ethan is not a simple story. It is a mandate, and the scale of it immediately dwarfs the confines of the cargo bay, making the station itself feel like a tiny provincial outpost. The dragons are not mere creatures of myth. They are observers, a designated order of chroniclers tasked with documenting the long, slow arcs of civilizations across the galaxy. Their mission is to witness, to record every moment of consequence, every decision that sends a species toward enlightenment or ruin. They are neutral witnesses to the unfurling tapestry of history, their purpose as ancient and immutable as the stars themselves. This role demands capabilities that defy human engineering. They traverse not only space but dimensions and the very gate networks that bind the galactic community together. They exist partly outside the normal flow of space-time, an adaptation that allows them to observe events across millennia without being subject to them. They are the universe's living memory, a collective consciousness scattered across existence, connected by the very frequencies that form the foundation of reality. This makes them not participants in history, but its most accurate and impartial archivists. This is why Resonance was attacked. The assault was not a chance encounter with a rogue asteroid or a territorial beast. It was a deliberate, targeted strike by a faction that understood its true nature and sought one thing: to permanently silence it. The attackers knew exactly what they were targeting, a chronicler on a specific mission, and they aimed to stop that message from ever being delivered. The implication is chilling. Someone, somewhere, possessed enough knowledge and power to identify and ambush a being that exists between dimensions. For Ethan, the context of the rescue shifts in an instant. The reality of the situation expands, its edges pushing far past the sealed doors of the bay. This is no longer just about saving a single life from a bureaucratic execution. It is about protecting the messenger. It is about safeguarding a message so critical that beings would risk a direct attack on a chronicler to suppress it. His perspective undergoes a fundamental recalibration. He is no longer a lone engineer fixing a broken thing. He is a potential mediator standing at the nexus of a galactic secret, the only person standing between a priceless truth and those who would see it erased. The stakes are no longer personal. They are no longer about his career, or even his immediate survival. The fate of the message, and by extension the truth it carries, now holds consequences for entire species, for the balance of power, for the very understanding of history itself. The calculus of the 72-hour deadline is rewritten. He is not just proving sentience to save a life. He is protecting a herald. The injured patient lying before him, once seen as a biological hazard, is now revealed as something far greater. A living library, a courier of a truth with the power to reshape the galaxy. The weight of that revelation settles over the bay, a silent, immense pressure. The air in the cargo bay grows cold, a physical chill that has nothing to do with the environmental controls. Director Kelly's has arrived, her presence an atmospheric event. She stands framed in the doorway, a figure of absolute authority carved from bureaucratic ice. Her uniform is immaculate. Its sharp lines and severe cut a visual representation of the unyielding established order she embodies. She does not look at the dragon. Her gaze sweeps past Ethan as if he were a malfunctioning piece of machinery, her eyes fixing instead on Commander Voss. Her displeasure is a silent force pressing down on the room, making the very light seem dimmer. "Time's up, human," she states, her voice devoid of inflection, a flat line of sound. The words are not an observation, but a verdict. The security team will now dispose of it according to regulations. The statement hangs in the air, its finality absolute. There is no room for debate, no consideration of the progress made, no acknowledgement of the being now watching her with ancient, intelligent eyes. The carefully negotiated 72-hour truce, the fragile promise Ethan had bartered for with a forgotten treaty clause, is rendered meaningless. Her authority is a hammer, and his legal technicality is glass. In immediate, synchronized response, the security team raises their weapons for the second time. The hum of charging plasma rifles fills the silence Kelly's words left behind. The momentary respite, the brief stretch of time where compassion had a chance, is shattered. The bay, which for days had been a workshop, a laboratory, a place of healing and quiet conversation, is instantly transformed. The tools of repair now lie next to the instruments of execution. The space has become a chamber, its purpose rewritten by a single command from a single woman. Kellis's perspective is clear and singular. She sees a problem, a disruption to the meticulously managed, perfectly regulated operation of her station. The dragon is not a person, not a herald, not a patient. It is an irregularity in her data, a spike of chaos on her clean readouts, an anomaly that must be erased to restore the flawless, predictable order she is sworn to uphold. Its suffering, its possible sentience, the quiet miracle of its repaired wing, none of it registers. Her world is one of systems and rules, and the creature is a fault in the system. The dragon shifts, its movement slow and pained. Its magnificent wings, though mended, are not yet strong enough to bear its weight, let alone achieve flight. It is cornered, trapped in this metal box with the cold gaze of the administrator and the unwavering barrels of the plasma rifles. The immediate danger has returned, but it is of a different, more potent quality than before. This is not the rash decision of a security commander following a manual. This is the calculated, deliberate, and utterly final judgment of the highest power on the station. There will be no more arguments, no more last-minute reprieves. The order has been given. The countdown has reached 0. Resonance does not cower. It rises. The movement is not aggressive, but monumental. A slow, deliberate unfolding of its full, magnificent height that makes the cargo bay feel suddenly, intensely small. Its voice fills the space, not as a sound that travels through the air, but as a primal vibration that resonates directly within the bones of every being present. It bypasses Director Kellis's command, her authority, her very presence, and speaks instead to the station itself, to the metal and the conduits and the artificial gravity, as if addressing a peer. It interrupts the director's cold pronouncement not with volume but with undeniable presence. Its declaration is not a plea for mercy. It is a statement of fact delivered with the weight of eons. The harmonics it uses are clear, formal, and they translate themselves into meaning with the force of a gravitational constant. I am resonance of the third harmonic, it announces, the concept of its name unfolding in their minds, herald of the Dragon Collective. The title is not a boast. It is an identification, a stating of credentials from a power structure far older and more profound than the petty bureaucracy of a single station. It insists upon its purpose with an air of ancient formality, invoking a term that makes even Director Kellis's icy composure fracture for a single revealing instant. I carry a message sealed by the Cosmic Accord. The phrase Cosmic Accord lands in the room with tangible weight. It is not a law from the station's manuals or a clause from a galactic treaty. It suggests a covenant, a foundational agreement between forces that govern reality itself, a level of authority that renders Kellis's regulatory power childish and insignificant. Her mouth, which had been set in a thin, unforgiving line, parts slightly. Her eyes, which had seen only a problem to be eliminated, now show a flicker of something unfamiliar: doubt. This is a claim of jurisdiction that exists entirely outside her experience. The air around the dragon begins to shimmer, not with heat but with a distortion of light, a bending of the visible spectrum at the edges of its form. It is the precursor to an impossible event, a visual static that hints at energies and dimensions beyond human comprehension. Reality itself seems to strain at the edges of the cargo bay, the solid, welded steel of the walls appearing less substantial, as if the entire station is a thin film over a deeper, more complex universe. The familiar hum of the power conduits is drowned out by a deeper, silent frequency, the hum of existence being questioned. Kellis's certainty, the bedrock of her entire persona, wavers for the first time. She is a master of rules, of systems, of hierarchies she can control and categorize. She has no protocol for this. She has no file on cosmic accords, no regulation covering entities that speak through harmonics and bend light. She is confronted by a phenomenon her rulebook cannot categorize. Her authority cannot command and her weapons cannot threaten. The confrontation is no longer physical. The raised plasma rifles seem absurd now. Primitive toys waved at a force of nature. The conflict has been elevated, shifted from a debate over regulations to a challenge of cosmic significance, from a question of disposal to a matter of metaphysics. Resonance's proclamation has redrawn the battlefield, and Director Kellis suddenly finds herself standing on unfamiliar ground, her power evaporating in the face of a truth larger than her station. The air tears. It does not rip like metal or scream like an alarm. It simply parts, an impossible seam opening in the center of the cargo bay as if reality itself were a curtain being drawn aside. And from that silent, shimmering void they emerge, more dragons. They manifest not with a flash of light or a roar of engines, but with a profound and immediate presence, their bodies coalescing from the ether as if they had always been there, simply waiting for the universe to acknowledge them. The bay, which moments before was a stage for a single administrator's ultimatum, is suddenly and irrevocably filled. Beings of immense power and ancient witness now occupy the space. Their varied forms, some no larger than a man, others dwarfing the cargo loaders, arranged in a silent, observing semicircle. Their arrival is utterly soundless. There is no roar of displaced air, no hum of a teleportation drive, no crackle of energy. The only sound is the faint, panicked hiss of a security officer's breath and the low, stabilizing thrum of the station's own systems, which now seem pathetic and small in comparison. This silence is a testament to a technology, or perhaps a biology, so far beyond human comprehension that it defies categorization. It is not a mode of travel they use. It is a state of being they simply transition into, making the complex mechanics of jump gates and warp drives seem like clumsy, childish toys. The security team's plasma rifles, still raised and humming with lethal charge, appear absurdly futile in their hands. primitive gestures of force in the face of such serene, unassailable majesty. Director Kellis is rendered utterly speechless. Her mouth remains slightly agape from her interrupted command, but no sound emerges. Her regulatory worldview, a fortress built on rules, hierarchies, and controllable variables, does not just crack. It collapses in an instant, leaving behind a hollow, silent void. She stands frozen, a statue of bureaucratic authority confronting a truth her manuals never mentioned and her power cannot touch. She is not looking at monsters or anomalies. She is looking at judges. The chroniclers are here, and their collective gaze sweeps across the scene, taking in every detail. The repaired wing, the human engineer, the armed security team, the stunned administrator. They miss nothing. Their eyes, a constellation of gold and silver and deep amethyst, hold the weight of recorded history. They have been watching everything, not just in this bay but for millennia. They are living archives, and the evidence of what has transpired here and across the galaxy is not a secret to be uncovered. It is a record they carry with them, waiting to be presented. The balance of power in the bay, and by undeniable extension the entire known galaxy, is overturned. It does not shift or tilt. It is upended completely. The authority Kellis wielded seconds ago is gone, rendered meaningless. The threat of the security team is nullified. The station's regulations, its chains of command, its entire reason for being, are suddenly provincial, small concerns from a smaller time. The dragons do not move to attack. They do not need to. Their simple, silent presence is a force that redefines the nature of the conflict, moving it from a local dispute over regulations to a cosmic moment of reckoning. The old order has ended. A new reality has silently, irrevocably begun. The Dragon Collective's focus is not on themselves, on their own history or their sudden silent arrival. It rests with immense and deliberate weight on the human who still stands protectively before their wounded member. Their message is for him, for his species, and for a galaxy that has built its entire hierarchy on a fundamental, willful lie. The Watchers expose a history meticulously and deliberately buried by the ruling powers that now govern the stars. This revelation is not about ancient dragon lore. It is about humanity itself. The chroniclers share the truth without fanfare, a simple harmonic transmission that lands with the force of a planet killer. Humanity is not, and never has been, a primitive species struggling to catch up. They are the inheritors, the direct descendants of those who built the very jump gates that connect the galaxy. Their rapid, almost inexplicable innovation, so often dismissed by other species as crude luck or mere mimicry, is not an anomaly. It is the flowering of a suppressed intuitive genius, a birthright reasserting itself against centuries of carefully engineered oppression. The galaxy's established leadership has not merely benefited from this misconception, it has thrived upon it. The manufactured hierarchy, the accepted belief in human inferiority, was a necessary tool for control. It was the cage. This grand interspecies deception allowed a select few to maintain a stranglehold on the gates and the flow of the most advanced technology, building their empires on a foundation of stolen legacy and enforced ignorance. Every so-called primitive behavior observed and documented by xenologists was, the chroniclers reveal, either deliberately staged by those in power or a single moment taken grievously out of context to reinforce the narrative of human simplicity. The neural interface technology that made interspecies dialogue possible, a cornerstone of modern galactic society, was in truth a human invention, co-opted, rebranded, and its origins scrubbed from the records to maintain the illusion of human dependence. For Ethan, standing amidst the silent, judging gaze of the Dragon Collective, the world reassembles itself into a terrifying new shape. Every slight, every condescending remark, every blocked promotion, every assumption that his technical skill was a happy accident, it all clicks into a devastating, coherent picture. His own profound skill with technology, the intuitive way he blended engineering and biology to heal Resonance's wing, was not a strange quirk of a single individual. It was a glimpse, a faint echo of his species' stolen birthright, resonating through him despite generations of suppression. He was not an exception to the rule of human incapability. He was a reminder of the rule that had been stolen from them. The revelation is profoundly destabilizing, a quake that shakes the foundations of the known cosmic order. It threatens every assumption, every treaty, every power dynamic that has held the galaxy together for centuries. The entire conflict in the cargo bay is instantly reframed. This was never a simple story of a mechanic saving a strange animal from heartless bureaucrats. It is the unveiling of a cosmic injustice of unimaginable scale, a theft of history and potential on a species-wide level. The truth is no longer a concept. It is a weapon, and it has just been placed quietly and irrevocably into the hands of a lone human engineer and the ancient beings who remember what was lost. The Dragon Collective provides the evidence, pulling it from the deep archives of their chronicles, a record of time itself. Without a single spoken word, they initiate a broadcast, a stream of pure data that floods directly into the station's central core. It bypasses all security firewalls and administrative locks, appearing simultaneously on every screen, every comms panel, every public display across Andromeda 7. This is not a request for consideration. It is an unveiling. The data that appears is meticulous, vast, and utterly undeniable. It is an avalanche of truth composed of original blueprints, internal communications logs, and damning treaty amendments. Each document a piece of a puzzle that forms a picture of systematic, galactic-scale deceit. They show with cold, impartial clarity how humanity's decline was not a natural historical progression. It was orchestrated, a deliberate campaign of suppression engineered over centuries. The chronicles replay key moments that were used to frame humanity as primitive. A diplomatic incident where human delegates were deliberately provoked into a violent response. The context edited from the official record. A technological breakthrough presented as a crude accident, its true inventors scrubbed from history. The neural interface technology that forms the basis for all interspecies communication, a cornerstone of modern civilization, is revealed in the original unmistakably human schematics, dated decades before another species claimed its invention. It was co-opted, patented under a new name, and its true origin, hidden behind layers of corporate and political control. The power structure of the galaxy, with its clearly defined hierarchy of advanced and primitive species, is exposed as a house of cards built on a single sustaining lie. The entire edifice of authority, the regulations, the treaties, the very sense of cultural superiority held by dozens of species, is shown to be a fabrication, a narrative carefully constructed to maintain control over the jump gates and the flow of technology. Director Kelly's watches the data scroll across the main view screen, her face a mask of crumbling certainty. Her authority, which moments before was absolute, evaporates into nothing. She was never a leader guiding progress. She was a warden, a chief enforcer of a false order, diligently policing a cage she never knew existed. The security team lowers their weapons. The movement is not a command. It is an unconscious collective reaction to the collapse of their entire worldview. The glowing barrels of their plasma rifles dip toward the deck, their purpose rendered instantly profoundly meaningless. They were not protectors of order. They were guardians of a fiction. The evidence does not argue. It simply is. It is a mirror held up to the galaxy, forcing every government, every institution, every citizen with a screen to confront the fabricated reality they have lived in for generations. The truth is no longer a secret held by a few. It is now public record, streaming live from the silent, judging observers who have borne witness to it all. Resonance turns its magnificent head toward Ethan, its golden eyes holding his with an intensity that makes the rest of the vast, dragon-filled bay seem to fade into a distant periphery. The grand mission, the galactic revelation of humanity's buried heritage, suddenly narrows to a single, startlingly personal point. The dragon communicates without sound, its harmonics resonating deep within Ethan's bones, conveying a truth that reframes everything. The message about stolen history was crucial, a necessary key to unlocking a new future. But the messenger, the being standing before him, was the true linchpin of the entire operation. Its primary objective was not the delivery of information, it was the search, a specific, deliberate, cosmic search for one particular human. It was a choice the harmonics convey, the concept unfolding in Ethan's mind with the clarity of a finished equation. Your choice. The collective, with its ability to perceive the branching paths of potential futures, had foreseen two starkly different outcomes for the galaxy. One future was a road paved with conflict, a brutal, escalating war sparked by the eventual violent uncovering of the truth about humanity's suppression. The other was a path of connection, a difficult but possible peace built on understanding and the restoration of what was stolen. The variable that determined which path reality would take was not a weapon or a political maneuver. It was a single moral decision made by a single individual at a precise moment in time. They needed to find a human who would choose empathy over expediency when tested. They sought someone who, when faced with a wounded, terrifying, and utterly alien being, would see not a threat or a nuisance, but a life in need of aid. Ethan's act of compassion, his quiet decision to step in front of those plasma rifles and invoke a forgotten treaty, was not a random act of bravery. It was the specific critical variable the chroniclers had been searching for across light years and dimensions. It was the action that steered the entire course of history away from the precipice of war and onto the fragile, hopeful road toward peace. He was not a random mechanic in the right place at the right time by mere chance. He was the subject of a deliberate cosmic search. His repair of the dragon's wing was the test, a meticulously arranged scenario designed not to judge his technical skill, but to measure the quality of his character. His morality, his inherent conviction that a broken thing, any broken thing, deserved a chance to be fixed, was the only answer that mattered. It was the proof the collective required. The entire rescue, from the moment the dragon crashed into his bay to the tense standoff with security, was revealed as a deliberate crucible. His actions within it were not those of a pawn moving through a predetermined destiny. They were the conscious, free will choices of an ordinary individual, and they held cosmic consequences that would echo across every civilized world. The scale of it was staggering. He had not just saved a life. He had, through a simple act of stubborn decency, chosen the fate of the galaxy. As the last echoes of the revealed truth settle over the bay, a subtle shift occurs in the air itself. Director Kellis, who had stood as a pillar of rigid authority moments before, is simply no longer there. One moment she occupies a specific point in space, a fixed coordinate of command and disdain. The next, the space is empty. There is no flash of light, no shimmer of a transporter beam, no sound of departing footsteps. Her disappearance is instantaneous and absolute, a silent correction to a profound systemic error. The architect of the station's local oppression, the chief enforcer of a galactic lie, has been removed from the board with an efficiency that feels both terrifying and just. Her fate is intentionally unclear, a point of stark finality that hangs in the now quiet bay. Was she arrested by some unseen arm of cosmic law, teleported to a holding cell beyond normal space for judgment? Or was her removal something else entirely, a consequence written into the fabric of the cosmic accord itself, triggered by her direct confrontation with its herald? The ambiguity is its own form of message. The method of her departure communicates more than a public trial ever could. It is a silent, utterly efficient end to her rule, executed without the need for conflict, debate, or fanfare. Her power, which seemed absolute, has been nullified as easily as deleting a faulty line of code. This silent vanishing signals one undeniable fact to everyone who remains: accountability has arrived for the old guard. The rules have changed, and the penalties for upholding a corrupt system are now immediate and inescapable. The power vacuum created by her absence is immediate and palpable, a sudden void where absolute authority once resided, but it is filled not with the expected chaos of a leadership coup or a scramble for control. Instead, it is filled with a heavy, charged potential. The air feels lighter, yet thick with the weight of what must come next. The path forward is unwritten, but the oppressive hand that would have blocked it is gone. Command falls, by the station's existing chain of command, to Commander Voss. He stands unmoving, his forearms hanging at his sides, his earlier certainty replaced by a dazed, somber realization. His perspective has been permanently altered, shattered, and reassembled by the dragon's revelation and the director's abrupt departure. The regulations he once enforced without question are now exposed as instruments of a lie. His purpose must be entirely redefined. The station, a vast and complex machine of life and technology, must now learn to function under this new and deeply uncomfortable truth. Its crew, from the highest officer to the lowest maintenance worker, must grapple with the reality that their entire understanding of the universe was built on a foundation of theft and deception. The old regulations, the massive binders of protocols and procedures that governed every action on Andromeda 7, are rendered instantly obsolete. They are not just outdated, they are the operating manual for a world that never truly existed, a detailed guide to maintaining a fiction. Their authority is gone, leaving behind a strange freedom and a daunting responsibility. The collapse of the old hierarchy does not begin with a revolution or a declaration of war. It begins here, in the silent, efficient removal of its chief local enforcer. The structure remains, but its cornerstone has been cleanly excised, and the entire edifice now stands on unstable ground, ready to be rebuilt from scratch on a foundation of truth. The change does not wash over Andromeda Station like a wave. It arrives instead as a series of discrete fractures, individual cracks appearing in the foundation of how its inhabitants perceive their world. The momentum is undeniable, a steady pressure forcing open old seams, but the process is deeply personal. Across the station, individuals process the dragon's revelation in their own way, their personal reckonings forming the building blocks of a new galactic reality. Old prejudices so deeply ingrained they felt like natural law do not vanish overnight, but they are suddenly stripped of their foundational support, left floating like disconnected debris. They exist now as hollow habits waiting to be replaced. Commander Voss finds Ethan later that cycle, not in the command hub, but back in the familiar underbelly of Cargo Bay 4. He does not issue orders. He asks a question. His four arms, usually held with such rigid purpose, hang at his sides in a posture of open inquiry. He seeks to understand the hybrid repair techniques used on the Dragon's wing, a quiet admission that the human he once dismissed holds knowledge his own training never provided. This shift from command to curiosity is the first true fracture in the old power structure, a personal choice that dismantles a lifetime of conditioned superiority. Lieutenant Kresh stands before a main view screen still displaying the Dragon's evidence, his translucent skin shifting through a slow, troubled cycle of muted colors. His entire worldview was built upon a strict, unwavering adherence to rules and regulations. Now he must reconcile a career of enforcement with the undeniable truth that those rules were instruments of a lie. The internal conflict is visible in the unstable hues of his skin, a silent storm as he grapples with a universe where his most cherished certainty has been revealed as a fabrication. Sergeant Thex approaches Ethan as he checks a power conduit, her crystalline form reflecting the bay's work lights. She offers a simple data chip containing the station's old security protocols regarding human technology restrictions. "These are obsolete," she states, her voice clear and resonant. It is not an apology but an action. Her silent questions about the established order have finally been answered, and with that clarity comes a new directive, to help dismantle the system she once upheld. The gesture is small, practical, and profoundly significant. The station's atmosphere itself feels different. The constant low-grade hum of enforced order and mutual suspicion has been replaced by a tentative, watchful curiosity. Conversations in the mess halls are quieter, more deliberate. Gazes that once slid over other species with dismissive familiarity now hold a flicker of genuine interest. Bridges between cultures once considered unthinkable due to ingrained hierarchy now appear not just possible, but necessary for survival. The need to understand one another, to rebuild on a foundation of truth instead of deceit, becomes a tangible force. Ethan is no longer invisible. He moves through the corridors and finds he is seen, not as a primitive oddity or a mechanical functionary, but as a focal point. He is a living symbol of the forgotten truth. His act of compassion now understood as the catalyst that cracked the old world open. His presence invites stares, but they are stares of reevaluation, of dawning respect. He represents a potential that had been systematically suppressed, and his mere existence now challenges everyone he passes. The galactic shift does not begin with grand declarations or fleet movements. It begins here in these quiet, personal moments of reckoning. It starts with a commander choosing to learn, a lieutenant wrestling with his conscience, a sergeant offering a data chip, and 1,000 small, tentative gestures across the station. It is built on the shaky ground of new alliances, forged not from treaty or conquest, but from the shared, uncomfortable burden of a truth that demands a better way forward. The old walls are down. The work of building what comes next has already begun. 5 years later, the humming underbelly of Andromeda 7 resonates with a new, complex frequency. The scent of ozone and hydraulic fluid remains, but it is now layered with the clean aroma of sterilized labs and the warm, organic scent of living things. The cargo bays, once a kingdom of isolation and echoing silence, have been reborn. Ethan founded the Interseas Engineering Institute here, in the very space where his world fractured and reassembled itself. The steel grates that once felt the impact of a wounded dragon now support workbenches where students from a dozen species collaborate. The transformation is physical and profound, a monument to a choice that changed the galaxy. The Institute's goal is total integration, a challenge that remains as ongoing as it is difficult. Old prejudices and biological incompatibilities present constant, intricate problems to solve. Ethan's personal philosophy, forged in the crucible of that first impossible repair, has become the Institute's guiding principle. Find the elegant harmony point, the place where biological intuition and mechanical precision confuse without either losing its unique identity. The curriculum is built on this idea, teaching not just engineering but a new way of seeing systems. Students learn collaboration as a first language, a necessity when a Tyrellian crystalline logic must interface with a human's pattern recognition or a Vulpid's thermal sensitivity. They are taught to make systems work together, to see the strength in their differences. Resonance is a constant presence, a living nexus of the Institute's purpose. The dragon is both an unofficial mascot and an official observer for the collective, a silent chronicler documenting this fragile, hopeful experiment in integration. Its massive, scale-covered form often rests in a sunlit corner of the main bay, its intelligent eyes tracking the student's progress. Its healed wing, a masterpiece of hybrid repair, is a daily lesson in what is possible. Its presence is a quiet promise and a reminder of the high stakes involved. The student body is a living rebuttal to the galaxy's old prejudices. Beings who would have once been segregated by station policy or cultural bias now work side by side, their diverse hands and appendages moving in unison over complex schematics and delicate biological samples. A Vulpid student might carefully calibrate a sensor designed by a human, while a Tyrellian oversees the power flow. The once impossible sight is now the Institute's commonplace reality, a testament to a hard-won new normal. This collaborative environment has allowed biomechanical medicine to flourish in ways once thought fantasy. Injuries that were automatic death sentences, neural degradation, cellular disintegration, complex system failures, are now treatable. The fusion of technologies and biologies has yielded regenerative therapies and prosthetics that integrate seamlessly with a patient's own tissue, healing not just the body but the divide between artificial and organic. These are not miracles. They are the logical outcome of applied empathy and cross-disciplinary genius. The galaxy's suppressed potential, held back for generations by a manufactured hierarchy, is finally beginning to surface. It emerges not in a single explosive event but gradually, steadily. It surfaces in the quiet focus of a student mastering a new interface, in the successful integration of a prototype biocircuit, in the repair of a piece of technology that helps a community thrive. It happens one student, one breakthrough, one repair at a time. Each small success is a brick in a new foundation. The place that was once a monument to pain and prejudice has been utterly transformed. It is no longer a cage or an execution chamber. It is a beacon, its light a steady pulse of peace and integration, shining from the station's deepest decks out into the waiting stars. Ethan stands on the viewing platform overlooking the great assembly of the Galactic Council. The scale of the chamber is immense, a half-dome of polished obsidian and shimmering light that holds representatives from 1,000 species. The air hums with the low frequency of countless translators, a sound he once monitored from a distant maintenance bay. He is not here as a curiosity or a specimen of a primitive species. The formal invitation, etched on a data slate of pure crystal, requested his presence as a guide. His coveralls have been replaced with simple, functional attire, but his posture remains that of an engineer assessing a complex system, his eyes taking in the scope of the challenge before him. His address is not about reclaiming humanity's stolen technological glory. It is a deliberate, quiet reframing of power itself. He speaks of shifting from a model of domination to one of stewardship, a concept that lands in the silent chamber with the weight of a new gravitational constant. The tension is not hostile but deeply skeptical. He must convince a galaxy built on millennia of ingrained prejudice and carefully maintained hierarchy to willingly dismantle those structures. He must persuade them to see diversity not as a threat to be managed, but as a strength to be celebrated. He speaks without theatricality, his voice carrying the same steady tone he used when facing down plasma rifles. Every being deserves dignity, he states. It is a simple declarative sentence, but in the context of the Council's history it carries revolutionary weight. It is an axiom, a fundamental truth that should underpin all law and interaction. He speaks of the practical courage required to act on that belief, of seeing inherent value in others even when every existing system insists that value does not exist. He describes it not as a soft virtue, but as the most advanced form of problem-solving, the only reliable method for building something that lasts. The old guard has collapsed, its influence fading not through conquest, but under the unbearable weight of its own documented falsehoods and the living example standing before them. True evolution, he argues, is not measured in weapon yields or credit reserves. It is measured in the capacity for compassion, in the willingness to extend a hand rather than raise a weapon. For the first time in the Council's long history, the assembled representatives listened to a human not as a fascinating primitive or a political obstacle, but as a philosophical equal. They listen because his words are backed by evidence and validated by result. Resonance is present, a silent, monumental testament at the edge of the chamber. The dragon's calm, observing presence reinforces every point, a living monument to the power of the choice Ethan made years ago in a dusty cargo bay. He does not seek power. He exemplifies a new model for obtaining it. His authority is not taken. It is earned through consistent action and undeniable integrity. He becomes a blueprint for a new kind of cosmic leadership, one built not on the control of resources, but on the practical application of empathy. He demonstrates that leading is not about commanding from the top down, but about understanding from the ground up, about seeing the broken parts of a system and having the skill and the will to make them whole. The Council's silence is not dismissal. It is absorption. They are processing a new operating system for the galaxy, and the engineer who fixed a dragon's wing is its architect. The story ends where it began, in the humming quiet of a maintenance bay. The same space that once held a wounded dragon now serves as a med bay for the Interseas Institute. The air still thick with the scent of ozone, but layered now with the clean, sharp smell of sterilized equipment and the faint, sweet scent of Tyrellian biochemistry. Ethan works under the focused beam of a surgical lamp, his hands moving with the same unhurried precision he used years before. His patient is a young Tyrellian, his crystalline form prone on the examination table, his throat exposed. The delicate vocal structures within, intricate formations of resonant crystal, have been fractured, silencing a voice that once sang in complex harmonics. The work is intensely delicate, a meticulous fusion of alien biology and human-engineered technology. One miscalculation with the sonic scalpel could turn hairline fractures into a cloud of irreparable dust. This is a small act, an intimate one. It exists far from the council chambers and their cosmic revelations, distant from the grand sweeping changes reshaping galactic politics. It is a single repair job. Ethan applies a drop of conductive polymer, a substance he developed to bridge microfissures in living crystal, guiding it into place with a tool that emits a low, precise vibration. The polymer flows into the breaks, hardens, and becomes a seamless part of the whole. The youth's chest plate, which had been still with anxious tension, rises and falls in a slow, steady rhythm of trust. The procedure is a quiet, focused echo of the first impossible repair that started it all. When the youth opens his mouth to test the repair, what emerges is not speech. It is music, a clear ascending scale of pure harmonics that seems to vibrate in the soul rather than the ear. The sound is one of sheer, unadulterated joy, a rediscovery of a lost part of the self. That voice, once silenced, would go on to sing compositions that moved mixed-species audiences to tears, becoming a bridge of shared emotion where words often failed. It is a potent symbol of Earth's renewed place in the galaxy, a role defined not by conquest or rulership, but by the quiet, steadfast work of a healer. We are the menders, the builders of bridges. Later, as Ethan cleans his tools, Resonance's large shadow falls across the workbench. The dragon's form is a familiar, comforting presence in the bay. Its voice, a warm resonance in the chest, forms the question. Ready for another day of changing the galaxy? Ethan looks up from his organized case of instruments, his gaze taking in the institute around them, the diverse students collaborating, the hum of progress, the healed Tyrellian youth now laughing with friends. His reply is the same as it ever was, a simple statement of fact from a man who understands that the largest structures are built from the smallest, most solid components. He smiles, a faint, calm expression, one repair at a time. The halls of the station, once echoing with the sterile announcements of a rigid hierarchy, now resonate with a different sound. It is the murmur of a dozen different languages overlapping, the hum of collaborative projects, the occasional strain of Tyrellian song, and the deep, peaceful frequency of a dragon's contented sigh. These are the sounds of connection. The future of the galaxy, vast and unknowable, is not built on single glorious victories or dramatic proclamations. It is constructed in these moments. It is forged through steady, compassionate work, each act a deliberate choice to heal, to connect, to understand. The work continues, one repair at a time. The universe evolves not by technological might or accumulated power, but by the quiet, radical choice to see worth in others. This fundamental recognition of dignity over dominance reshapes galaxies. Ethan and Resonance now guide a new generation, proving that the smallest act of mercy can transform civilizations. A single decision to help a wounded being, made in a forgotten cargo bay, reverberated across stars. It proves that compassion is not a weakness, but the most potent catalyst for change, forging a future built on understanding, one deliberate act of healing at a time. He did not plead. He cited law. Galactic Treaty 7, Section 4, Subsection 9. The ethical treatment of non-classified but potentially sentient life forms mandates assessment before any permanent action. The clause was obscure, a footnote in interstellar law rarely invoked, but it was a shield forged from words and technicalities. He held it up against the imminent threat of plasma fire, a legal argument as his only defense. It was not a grand, heroic speech. It was a quiet, stubborn act of conviction, the kind born from a mind that believed all broken things deserved a chance to be fixed. He was not a warrior, not a diplomat trained in high-stakes negotiation. He was an engineer. His purpose was to diagnose, to repair, to make systems whole. He saw the dragon not as a monster or a pest, but as a complex living system in a state of critical failure. His hands, which knew the shape of every tool and the feel of every circuit, itched to begin the work of mending the torn wing, of stopping the slow seep of life onto the deck. For the first time, the security team was forced to truly look at him. He was no longer just the human mechanic, a blur of movement in the background they were trained to overlook. He was an obstacle, a variable. Commander Voss's primary hands tightened on his hips, his secondary arms lowering the rifles a fraction of an inch. The absolute certainty in his posture cracked, replaced by a flicker of bureaucratic hesitation. Lieutenant Kresch's skin paled from a disgusted purple to a conflicted murky gray. Sergeant Thex's hand, still on her sidearm, did not move to draw it. Her crystalline eyes were fixed on Ethan, the silent question in them now sharper, more pointed. Ethan's defiance had not won the argument. It had created a stalemate. He had introduced a procedural complication, a legal loophole that demanded consideration. He had bought a sliver of time, a fragile pause in the countdown to an execution, and he had done it with nothing but his own unwavering belief and the cold, precise text of a forgotten treaty. The next move was theirs, but the dynamic in the bay had shifted irrevocably. Commander Voss grants the request, but the terms are a cage of their own design, a contract of rigid constraints and unforgiving consequences. The deal is struck not with a handshake, but with the cold hiss of the bay's main doors sealing shut, isolating them from the rest of the station. Ethan has bargained for a 72-hour lockdown of Cargo Bay 17, a self-contained environment now functioning as both prison and sanctuary. The security team withdraws to the other side of the reinforced bulkhead, their presence reduced to a silent, watchful monitor feed. He is alone with the dragon, and the weight of that solitude is immediate and immense. The tension is no longer about immediate execution, but about proving a concept the galaxy is deeply reluctant to grant to unknowns: sentience. He must demonstrate, beyond any procedural doubt, that the creature before him is not a mere animal, a biological hazard to be cleaned up, but a person, a thinking feeling being deserving of the protections afforded by Galactic Treaty 7. The promise he has extracted is a monumental gamble, a wager where the stakes are absolute. On the table lies the dragon's life and his own future. Failure for either of them carries a terminal price. Failure means a plasma bolt for the creature and almost certain exile for the engineer, who dared to challenge the established order. The bay, once his kingdom of humming machinery, is transformed. The familiar scent of ozone and hydraulic fluid is now undercut by the coppery tang of the dragon's blood and the faint, alien musk of its hide. The space is a contradiction, a prison because it confines them, cutting off all assistance and trapping them under the scrutiny of unseen judges. A sanctuary because for these 72 hours it is the only place where the dragon is not viewed as a target. Every diagnostic panel, every power conduit, every tool on his belt is now an instrument in this desperate experiment. He is solely responsible for a life the entire station has already written off, a burden that isolates him more completely than any physical barrier. He must balance the most practical of constraints: limited medical supplies, zero outside support, his own human fallibility, against a moral imperative that feels like a physical force in his chest. The countdown begins the moment the doors seal, a silent clock implanting itself in the back of his mind. He can feel its passage in the slow drip of fluid from the dragon's wound, in the gradual dimming and brightening of the artificial lights that mark the station's arbitrary day-night cycle. Each second is a grain of sand falling through an hourglass, the aggregate weight of them pressing down on him. The deal is done. The crucible is set. Within this sealed metal world, compassion now has a deadline, and it must perform miracles to defy the cold, rigid rules waiting just on the other side of the door. Ethan's hands do not shake as he approaches the wounded wing. They are as steady as the ship's gyroscopic stabilizers, a byproduct of years spent soldering microscopic circuits and aligning delicate sensors. The repair before him demands something new, a complete fusion of fields. It requires the precision of a surgeon and the material science of an engineer, a synthesis of traditional medicine and cutting-edge technology that no formal training could ever provide. He is operating at the intersection of biology and mechanics, and the only textbook is the anatomy of the magnificent suffering creature before him. The damage is severe. The upper wing joint is dislocated, the ball ripped from its socket in a way that suggests immense sudden force. Below it, the delicate membrane is shredded, a complex lattice of tissue and minute capillaries, now a ragged, weeping ruin. Deep lacerations score the creature's flank, each one a potential gateway for infection in this sterile, artificial environment. There is no room for error, no backup plan if his improvised solutions fail. The dragon's life and his own future hinge on the next few hours of work. He begins with the biosealant, a substance engineered for plugging emergency hull breaches in deep space. He has spent most of the first night adapting its formula, tweaking the polymer base to be biocompatible, to encourage cellular regeneration instead of merely sealing a vacuum. The clear gel, now loaded with a suspension of neutral stem cells, goes onto the deepest lacerations first. It stitches the flesh from the inside out, forming a flexible, protective seal that the body can integrate and eventually dissolve. The bleeding stops almost immediately, the first small victory in a long battle. The dislocated joint is a different challenge entirely, a problem of physics and leverage. He must manipulate the heavy limb with a delicate touch, applying precise pressure to guide the bone back into its socket without causing further damage to the torn ligaments surrounding it. It is a slow, painstaking process of minute adjustments, a grim ballet of pushing and rotating against the creature's immense muscle tension. He feels the moment it slips into place with a soft, definitive click that travels up through the bones of his own arms. For the torn membrane, he turns to his most advanced material, a roll of prototype smart fabric, a metamaterial woven for next-generation spacesuits. Its genius is its adaptability. Its structure can alter its properties based on environmental feedback, becoming rigid under stress or fluidly flexible for movement. He cuts a patch to fit the largest tier, pressing it gently against the raw tissue. The material's microscopic filaments interact with the biological surface, creating a seamless integration. It doesn't just cover the wound. It becomes a temporary functional part of the wing, a scaffold upon which new tissue can grow. Each action is a profound risk, an experiment conducted in real time on a living, sentient patient. There is no protocol for this. He relies on a deep well of intuitive engineering, a sense for how systems, whether mechanical or organic, want to function. The dragon remains preternaturally still throughout the entire ordeal, its great body a mountain of patience. Its large, intelligent eyes, the color of molten gold, track his every movement with an unnerving focus. There's no fear in that gaze, only a deep, observing trust. Ethan's quiet competence is the only thing that fills the bay. There is no grand speech, no triumphant music. There is only the soft hum of his tools, the faint scent of the biosealant, and the meticulous, unhurried motion of his hands. He performs a miracle of hybrid repair, not with fanfare but with focus, blending disciplines to mend a being that the rest of the galaxy had already written off. The dragon's wing, once a ruin, is now whole, a testament to a new kind of healing.